In the Umbria region of Italy, where the orchards are as rich in history as they are in fruit, Isabella dalla Ragione is in a race against time. Alarmed by the rapid disappearance of traditional varieties of fruit, Isabella has dedicated her life to finding and saving them. But many were gone before she began her crusade, and that presents a problem. If you've never seen the fruit you are looking for, how do you know when you found it? Isabella dalla Ragione's quest for heritage fruit, which she calls arboreal archaeology, began with her father, who long ago saw the beginnings of an alarming trend that was transforming the orchards of Umbria.
At the beginning of the last century, there were 150 cultivated varieties of apples. We lost almost all because now we cultivate 3 varieties of apples for 80% of our production.
Her father Livio has a passionate connection to the Umbrian countryside, dating back to his war years with the partisans, fighting fascists in the surrounding hills. So when he saw his neighbors leaving their orchards to move to the cities after the war, he saw a vital element of his heritage disappearing and knew he had to act.
He started to harvest the old varieties, mela del castagno, mela muso di bue.
He harvested not only the fruit, but the trees themselves, and eventually had an orchard of 400 in San Lorenzo dei Lerchi.
Ho cercato di mettere insieme qui i ricordi della mia infanzia e della mia giovinezza. Allora i odori e sapori sono qui.
Isabella is a graduate agronomist who spent years looking after the trees in the nearby city of Perugia, developing skills, especially in grafting, that meshed perfectly with her father's obsession.
When I had my degree and I started to work in the countryside, I helped him to harvest the variety, to save the varieties. So now this is my job.
Not far away, a woman with a very different job has discovered Isabella's quest and recognized its importance to her work. Karen Yurkovich is a Canadian painter who's made Umbria her home.
I had read a book that she had published about archeologiaarborea. That's this association that she has with her father. And I was very interested in the kind of work that they did and the collection that they had here of these fruit trees that were disappearing. The last 10 or 15 years of my artistic production, I've been dealing with nature. And what I found very interesting was her research and her desire to discover and to keep alive these older varieties of fruit that you don't find on the market any longer.
This research is no simple task. If a variety has disappeared, how can she even know it existed? For this, she pores over the records of ancient estates, looking for names she no longer hears. But a name alone is not enough. To see a lost fruit requires imagination. And that brings the women to the Palazzo Bufalini and a fresco by Cristofano Gherardi, who, like Karen, took the local fruit as his subject.
Gherardi painted this room between 1530 1540. He painted very precise, and you can recognize the varieties. This is very rare and precious for me, for my work.
Gherardi's meticulous regard for detail convinces Isabella that these are reliable images of the old varieties. The rich legacy of the Renaissance has proven an invaluable tool in Isabella's research, particularly the Umbrian painters like Carlo Crivelli.
It's interesting because he painted in this area. So it's important for me to see this kind of apples that was very popular in this area in the past. This is a very important to see these paintings because it's like the only documentation that we have from that period.
A textbook from a century ago provides further details as the scientist in Isabella slowly builds her case for each missing variety.
Of course, for the old fruit, it's not easy to find the name, the origin, and everything. So, with this book and the old paintings, the old description, I can reconstruct the life of these fruits.
Most of the discoveries turned up in her research are already in her father's orchard, but occasionally Isabella's efforts are rewarded with a variety that seems to have vanished altogether.
I found two varieties of pear, Pera Fiorentina and Pera Carovella, that were very, very popular pears, winter pears.
And having discovered a variety unknown to her, the crusader sets out to find it, hoping against hope that somewhere a tree has survived. Recreating Eden will return with more of the lost pears. The great diversity in Umbria's ancient fruit trees originated with the mountainous geography that cut the region into narrow valleys, each a land unto itself. But it was encouraged for practical utilitarian reasons.
In the past, you had every day or every week a different variety of apples, pears, cherries, plums, figs. So you could cover all the year without refrigerator. That was how the people could eat in the whole year.
Mechanization changed everything, as land was turned over to mass production of cash crops, or abandoned as unworkable by machinery. The cost of food dropped, but Isabella feels we paid another price.
Our senses are completely changed. So we cannot taste the real difference between a mela rosa or mela rosa fragola. They are two different apples.
This loss for Isabella goes far beyond its effect on our palate.
We lost our roots, our memory, because these fruits were so linked with the life of the people. If you lose a variety, you lose forever.
Certain the world will someday realize its error, Isabella and her father have taken it upon themselves to make sure that when it does, variety will still be available.
During the university, I worked with my father. We went all over to discover some trees in old orchards, in old farms, in old convents. And so this was, for me, at that time, like an adventure. when we found something was like to find a treasure.
But Isabella knew that, sweet as it might be, the elusive Fiorentina was not the real treasure she was seeking.
To find the plants is important, but more important is to find the people who can tell me about the plants and the varieties and how to use also.
Oh, buongiorno!
We are in Pietralunga area, and these two people are Rigo and Maria, and they cultivate and keep the old varieties of plants.
It was here on a tiny farm, deep in a remote valley, that a long and discouraging search suddenly and literally bore fruit.
I was very worried and very sad because I thought that it was impossible to find again the Pera Fiorentina. I arrived here and Rigo said, I have Pera Fiorentina. You have Pera Fiorentina? Oh, fantastic.
But even as she rejoiced, she was distressingly aware of how close she came to failure, how urgent her quest has become.
Only Rigo has Pera Fiorentina, only one plant. And destroyed this plant is destroyed the variety. So this is the problem.
Isabella never loses sight of how crucial to her quest are the small farmers like Rigo and Maria.
To arrive here, for me, was like to arrive in Eden. They are the people who conserved this treasure.
Knowing their importance to the future of diversity, Isabella has broadened her research to accommodate their customs.
The rural culture is an oral culture. So the main way is to speak with the people, the old people, who can be the witnesses of the past. No books can substitute this kind of relationship.
Ma un po' rugginosa fuori.
One of the pair that Sergia described to me is Pera Rubbia. That is, she said that is one of the most important pair in this area.
È il meglio che il nuovo. Questo vedi, qui ce l'ha,
But unfortunately, the tree was broken during a storm.
Guarda questi belli, sì, sì. Quelli tutti buoni.
The tree started to grow again, and now we have the possibility to reproduce again this plant, this variety. So because it's the only tree that we have of this variety. So Sergia can again eat her preferred fruit. Puoi mangiare ancora la pera rubbia?
Sì.
Se la innestiamo.
Sì.
No. Come no? These plants are nothing without people.
Recreating Eden will return with more of the lost pairs.